Hey there guys, it might seem a little bit odd for this to happen, but I'm going to come back here with a little bit more gameplay. So what's been going on is I've been hoping to write a video here doing a little bit at least of some kind of comparison between NHL 94, 95, and 96. But to be able to do that, I have to actually play the out-of-the-box version of NHL 94, which I realized that I hadn't done yet. So that's what we're going to do here today. We're going to go play some NHL 94 and sort of see what's going on. It's a little bit surprising to me that I haven't done this yet, but you know, that's sort of the way that it is. We'll just set everything up like this. So I did play NHL 94 before, as you might recall, but I played a modified version with fighting, so we want to play the version without fighting here. So let's just go ahead and get into it and see what's going on. So yeah, after playing NHL 96 earlier today, you can feel right away the difference in the controls, difference in the speed of the game, difference in sort of the flow and everything like that. NHL 94 has this sort of like, I don't know, it feels like you're on ice in my opinion, right? You kind of get going and then you don't stop. Oh geez, who let that guy score? Let's see, 94, I would argue, is probably the culmination of that, the first three games, you know, 92, 93, 94. In the sense that this is the same engine that those games use, and it works kind of the same way. I think the biggest debate here is between whether you like having sort of, you know, a extremely fast, mostly breakaway focused version of this game, or whether you like things to be a little bit slowed down. You could also think of it as sort of like, you know, a more, I guess, simulation type game versus a more arcade style feel. So I'm interested to know kind of what you guys think, which one you prefer, which one you don't prefer, and sort of what your reasoning is. As I've played these more and more, I do think that I honestly prefer 94 to the other ones, 95, 96. 95 and 96, by the way, are different games. Among those two, I kind of prefer 96. I like the feel of that a little bit more. People have said already, too, that they found that they like sort of the graphics better in NHL 96, and I do agree with that. I think that technologically speaking, it's a much more advanced game. But in terms of your overall play control, in terms of the overall feel and stuff, I really do prefer this game. Like I was saying earlier with NHL 96 earlier today, the one problem that I have with it is that it feels just like it's sort of like breakaway central, you know? It's not quite as bad as 95 was, though, in that respect. 95, it was like I could, you know, grab basically any defenseman in the game and, you know, get to the other side of the ice, like, right away. And, you know, while I suppose it's nice if you want a lot of action, or if you're trying to get a bunch of, like, you know, 10-year-old kids to get into it or whatever, it's not necessarily so nice if you're trying to play a game that's like a simulation. Now, the other thing I've noticed, I had said before that it felt at least like there weren't so many people who were supporting kind of mods and stuff for NHL 95. And I would argue that there still are fewer mods for 95 and 96 than there are for 94. But yeah, it's an interesting debate. It's an interesting thing to sort of get into and to see, you know, well, I mean, which one do you think really is better, you know? Now, one thing I do think is, you know, absolutely, you know, always going to be true is that this game is certainly superior to the NHLPA 93 and to the original NHL hockey. And the reason why is because you got these babies, right? These one-timers. So, you know, I mean, the absence of fighting is probably not a great thing for this game, right? That, of course, came back with NHL 96. My understanding is that it came back only after the EA sort of promised that they would be good and make it so that you couldn't have fights with, like, everybody in the game all the time and all that stuff. But I don't know necessarily that the lack of fighting is that big of a problem, honestly. In fact, I tend to think that most people who are playing this game probably are focused on, you know, the gameplay itself as opposed to, you know, the fighting and stuff like that. That's at least what I would expect. So they're gonna let me do that, huh? No interference call? All right, we'll take it. Come on, what did I do, ref? Anyway, so, you know, this is one of the cool things about doing these types of videos, right, is that, you know, I can offer sort of a little bit of a window into kind of, you know, my thought process, creation process, and stuff like that you might not necessarily get, you know, from other channels. You definitely wouldn't get from my earlier channels. So, you know, I think at least it's pretty cool. And then, you know, we can talk about stuff and find out what your opinion is on stuff, etc., etc. The one big weakness I think that there is in this game is that there's no real season mode. I mean, others have told me, well, you can play and just sort of keep track of all the games by hand if you want. I'm not sure how much you really want to do that, though. You don't really have, like, you know, standings or anything like that. Having said that, though, it's not necessarily that, like, EA was doing a great job with its season modes in its sports games when it added them. The old 16-bit versions of season mode would usually be sort of like, here's your schedule, and, you know, like, you just play these games. It didn't have much in terms of, like, actual statistics and, you know, letting you go back and see what happened in the last game and all that stuff. Basically, you know, a lot of these games, and I include the Madden series especially in that, a lot of these games originally had season modes that were kind of like, you know, add-ons that were just sort of tacked on, like at the last second, and it was kind of like almost a last-second thought of, you know, what we might include for a season. That's right, make him pay. Alright, come on, guys. Oh, wow, there goes the puck. Oh, I just noticed that. That's interesting. All sorts of funny things going on with this game engine. Now, the other thing I haven't really looked at is the Super Nintendo version of NHL 96. And so, I don't know, maybe that's worth looking at as well. I was actually impressed. I know not everybody is. I was impressed, though, by NHL 95 on the Super Nintendo. I thought that was actually pretty well done. And the other thing is everybody says you got to play the PC version, so that's going to come up eventually, though I'm not going to have enough time before this video comes out to really dig into that. Oh. I was controlling the goalie the whole time. Oh, here we go. Don't you hate it when you get called for a penalty, you can't even see what it is that you did? Almost as much as I hate seeing them score. Anyway, I do think that, you know, this difference between, you know, the different versions of NHL are a classic example of, like, you know, the difference between trying to make something that's really realistic in a sense and trying to make something that really appeals to, you know, sort of gamer types. As I've said before, I mean, the mid 90s especially were really the time for a focus on, you know, speed as much as possible in video games, especially on the Sega Genesis. And I think that's one of the reasons why EA decided to do what it did with this series. But speed doesn't necessarily always make like a great game. It can make for, you know, a whole bunch of problems. Like I said, you know, sometimes you have basically, you know, breakaway after breakaway instead of having stuff, you know, in the middle of the ice, and it can be really, really difficult to play defense if everybody's zooming past you. Not that I'm doing a great job playing defense here anyway. Alright, we gotta calm this down and let's try to win this game. The other possibility, of course, is that I might prefer the slower version just because I'm older. All right, I don't know. Maybe kids, if they go back and play these games, are going to say, "Oh, we want to play the faster one." Might be a little bit easier for you to process everything. Guess we could always call NHL 94 NHL Old Man Edition. Boy, they don't like any of my hits, do they? And I thought I was doing a good job. We got another penalty. Another charging call. There we go. Come on, come on. We wind up with another penalty. How about that? I wanted to see how many guys I could get in the box at once. That was the whole purpose of that. Alright, let's try it again. Alright, here we go once again. Let's see if we can get something in. Oh, not quite. That's what he gets for scoring against us. Oh, come on, ref. Nice, nice. Okay. There we go. We got one back. All right. Full concentration now, huh? Hey, get back here. Now, I mean, whether, you know, this game is more accurate, realistic or not, and its speed and all this stuff is itself sort of a matter of question. I think that's one of the things I want to kind of look at when I make this video up. Let's see if we can look at a couple of maybe clips of games from this era or something like that and kind of decide for ourselves what we think. We lost. Well, that means I must not like this game so much, right? Robitaille ended up one of the 3 stars of the game, even though I knocked his lights out. Oh, and we knocked the puck out as well. Well, that's good. That's a nice touch there at the end. Anyway, just so you remember, in case you don't, this one does have the ability to play playoffs and 7-game playoffs. You can do the shootout, of course, but regular season is basically just what we saw there. It doesn't save your season stuff. If you do the playoffs, it doesn't really save your stats game to game. So, you know, EA still had a long way to go from there. So, anyway, there you go. Look for the full-length video coming out at some point in time in the near future. I don't know if I'll have it out today. If not today, probably tomorrow. So, we'll see what we can do. I'll push to get it out quickly, and I'll talk with you later. Bye.